think it's difficult because when I saw Lex with his like narcissist gimmick, I kind of felt like that was a lot more natural to him.
Yeah.
You know, almost like I could see him enjoying that more. But when he's supposed to be like the American hero and that, I never really saw him like smiling or enjoying the moment or everything. He was a very serious guy, you know. And when he'd come out, it would just be like, I'm here to beat up the bad guy, and he just beat up the bad guy, and then that would be it. There was like, whereas Hogan you'd see the emotion on his face, and that he'd be happy once he won the match. He'd do his poses and all of that. Luger felt very like clean cut. It was like come out there, get the job done, and then get that reaction, and then leave. I think, like you said, the dedication wasn't quite all there.
Yeah, I kind of definitely said there was definitely this whole Americana behind you, and you know, it's the military kind of thing going on here for Lex Luger. Okay, let's move into early August here. And Meltzer reports if the Lex Luger thing doesn't get over huge, it isn't because it hasn't been done to perfection. It's also worth noting that unlike Hulk Hogan, they are through interviews trying to portray him as a multi-dimensional human being rather than a one-dimensional cartoon hero. That they're trying to get him over as a guy that you can go up to, and he is one of us. And you know, they're not trying to, I suppose, do that whole superstar Hulk Hogan. You know, he's on another planet kind of level. But even then, like Matt said, I kind of feel like he's not maybe as transparent as what it needs to be. Fun facts from this time is that Thunder in Paradise is scheduled to be syndicated in March of 1994. They got the pilot done, and somebody picked it up. CBS, thank you very much. Gave him that one. Hulk Hogan's movie Mr. Nanny is now scheduled for September release in the US, which was pushed back since January. So. That was definitely taking its time there. The European tour that ended in Sheffield, England, spelled the end of at least this WWF stint of Hulk Hogan, who beat Yokozuna in a DQ title match on the final match in Sheffield. Hogan and WWF will, from this point, be no longer working with each other. And he spells the end of that. Matt, obviously Hogan he goes and does Thunder in Paradise and whatever else he's doing with Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Jimmy Hart. And I suppose it's worth noting here that WWF have always had Hulk Hogan by their side up until this point. Like he's featured in, well, literally all their main events at WrestleMania now. I suppose we can say even 9, where he wasn't even booked there, he's still got on there. So he's a massive part of that company. He's been a massive part of, you know, selling out arenas, and I guess, I mean, it's different to today because people will always compare Hogan to maybe like a John Cena, but back then it was very, very different because WrestleMania is WrestleMania now, but back then WrestleMania wasn't WrestleMania, and a lot of it, you needed that popularity of the main event. You needed somebody to get the seats in, you know, people to come and sit down and watch these things. And Hogan, you know, for the majority was the most iconic sort of baby face. He is the most probably well-known wrestling name out there as far as pro wrestling goes. Even at this point, to lose Hulk Hogan, Matt, how kind of a blow was that, do you think, at this point? Or do you think that was something that needed to happen? Like it was like, you know, 2 steps back for sort of to go 5 ahead or whatever. But do you feel like they kind of was losing something majorly here within the company? Because the roster does seem slightly bare, even though, you know, there are the likes of Bret and Luger in there. It seems star power without Hogan and the likes of Warrior is at an all-time low at this point.
Well, I've got to say, there was never going to be a good time to lose Hogan. Just that kind of name and that draw that he would bring. You know, WWF could have always done with that at any moment. He was always going to sell some tickets, and like I said, there was the option there to put the belt on him at any time if they were able to hold on to him. And I got to say, even if there was like other options, even if they still had a hold of Ric Flair at the time, I think the loss would have been a lot less, because they would have just turned to him and said, well, like, we know you're capable of holding the title and still drawing a crowd. That would be great if you could do that. And I mean, that would have been not too bad. But to just lose like their crown jewel at that moment, you can never prepare for that. And there was no real suitable immediate replacement. No one had reached the heights that Hogan had. And I mean, it's almost like all other attempts had failed, because they tried to bring in Flair, they tried to bring up Flair and put Ultimate Warrior on that pedestal, and that didn't pan out. So things were really not going to plan for WWF at that time.
Yeah. Okay, Luger, Meltzer reports Luger has been drawing good crowds to his public appearances in the Lex Express, which he has largely been arriving 30 to 45 minutes late. He blames that on the schedule makers not allotting him enough time to train and tan before he starts this stuff. Obviously, that's not going to go down too well. So yeah, he's still doing all that stuff. They're still throwing that one in. Of course, now it's going to become official that they are going to go with Yokozuna versus Lex Luger. Instead of Hulk and Yokozuna at SummerSlam, they are going to put Lex Luger in that exact spot, and he is going to go up against the WWF champion. And there's kind of like a little stipulation they do with this match, like where I believe it's like, if he doesn't win the match, he'll never get a WWF title shot ever again, or something like that. Before all this, they do a kind of couple of moments where they're on the I forgot what, like they're on like a ship kind of thing, and it's like, who can lift Yokozuna? Matt, did you get a chance to see that link I sent you with that? That was kind of strange.
Well, this is another one of those things that when I think of Lex Luger is one of my go-to memories.
Yeah.
So I had this pretty much embedded into my mind with Lex Luger's character anyway. I think it was the US Intrepid. I think
yes, you're right. Yeah. And
and what I remember it being a massively huge cheese festival.
Yeah.
And like bring out all your American heroes. And I think at the time, Crush was the one that got closest.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were trying to. This is how desperate they were at the time. Macho Man was going to be the last hope until like. Oh yes, there's always a mystery surprise guest, isn't there? I did like the way he came in though. The helicopter was a nice touch.
Yeah. It was. I mean, God knows what lengths they go to today if they tried that with somebody. But they were definitely trying to make this guy as cool as possible. That this is the guy who, if no one else can do it, he's gonna be able to. This is the guy you can trust now. He's got the kind of that smile that doesn't kind of sit well. It's like it's maybe too kind of like put on, if you like, at this point for me. At this point when he's coming in, and he's the only guy that can do it. He's got these jeans on, top off, and all the rest of it. But I mean, I guess it wasn't a terrible piece to put in there as a little angle before they get into the match. The idea of Lex Luger and Yokozuna as are coming together now. I mean, whoever Yokozuna faces, Matt, it's always going to be hard, I guess, to have that chemistry with someone like Yokozuna, and you've got to be a certain type of guy. But obviously with Lex, they can kind of go on the whole idea of like strength, and this guy can do these kind of things. With these two matching up on paper, is this a big enough match, Matt, considering, of course, this would have been Hulk and Yokozuna's third match? Does this one rank in with everything they've tried to do here with the Lex Express? By this point, do you think they've done enough to sell this as a big-time main event?
I guess this is where the final stop on the Lex Express, maybe, where they were chugging along, trying to get to Yokozuna, putting the publicity out there, getting the kids on board, you know, like, he's here now, he has arrived, he's going to get rid of this foreigner out of the WWF. And, man, the lengths that they would go to, there was, like, no bounds, was there? Was it Mr. Fuji spat in his face?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, symbolism, he spat in the face of America, you know, he's here to stand up for each and every one of us. So I gotta say the effort was like an A for effort in trying to get this guy over.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure whether it worked.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much they get away with some of the stuff they were saying to each other back then either. With that whole stuff as well, it was very close to the mark nowadays. I don't think you'd get away with that those kind of lines now. In the WWE, that's for sure. But let's move forward then, because obviously we want to get into where we get to SummerSlam, of course, and we're going to go into all this. But it's interesting here that it's reported here that Lex Luger and Yokozuna do work a match in the USWA, and this is kind of seen as a match that's, you know, there just to test each other out, to see what the chemistry is going to be like before they get to SummerSlam, I guess. And so they get the chance to have that match here rather than just, you know, straight away at SummerSlam. So yeah, the first Lex Luger Yokozuna match for the WWF title took place at the USWA, which was a show that come on the 23rd of August in Memphis as a bit of a dry run, basically. That's what they were saying there. Moving into SummerSlam then, 1993. The complete lineup, of course, which headlined by none other than Yokozuna and Lex Luger. Also had matches on there like Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler, Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect. And The Undertaker would go up against Gonzalez again. Not sure how happy he would have been with that one. But yeah, now Meltzer reports on this. There is a very logical business reason to not change the title. The biggest money match the company thinks it has for WrestleMania is Yokozuna versus Luger, but it can't draw a WrestleMania buy rate with Yokozuna as the challenger. The scenario that seems to make sense is for Luger to be denied a title shot, since McMahon made the point of saying he'd be getting one, and everything said in the manner to set him up, going forward past that. Matt, what did you make of the Lex Luger Yokozuna match from SummerSlam as a main event, and what did you take from that one?
Well, I've got to say, it wasn't too bad of a match, actually. I wasn't expecting these two to gel that well, but, I think it didn't go down too bad with me. I think some parts were like, it was almost like this, if I was there, just like now watching it, I would say this match was written for Hogan. Because everything that happened in that match was almost like a Hogan spot. Yeah. And I'm not too sure whether it's because the gimmick was the same, but I just watched the whole thing and I thought Hogan could have done this, and that Lex should be capable of more than what Hogan was really at that time.
Yeah, something that fascinated me with this, I completely forgot about this, was the whole national anthem thing before they got on with it. And I believe it was Aaron Neville and Jimmy Suzuki sung national anthems for respective countries, just to try and get some more heat on for old Yokozuna there. They would literally go to those levels, and then of course the whole Japanese flags there, and then Lex Luger kind of comes out, and it's this whole kind of country versus country kind of thing almost that they're trying to go into here. I felt like there was maybe a little bit too much of that for my liking in this. Like it was getting a bit too oh come on. Maybe that's why I wasn't into him, because I wasn't USA, so it was very difficult to relate to Lex Luger, I think, at this point, if you were not kind of, under 12 or whatever, and thinking this guy's cool, defending your country. The match itself, though, 18 minutes. What did you think of the whole ending to it, Matt? Obviously him winning, but but not winning the title. And you know, the way they panned it out was almost as if he was kind of